peace. Peace, peace. Shalom, shalom. Shalom. Assalamu alaikum. And welcome to another day to labor in the vineyard of the Most High. With your brother. Another day to get in the word to see what the Most High got to serve. And what we eating on today, we eating on knowledge of the other side, the unseen brothers and sisters that's becoming visible to some. And to others, they are going to be visible in a nearer than later time frame. Alright? We seen the other lessons where they said they gonna reveal themselves to us sooner than later. And now we just gonna get the lesson on the whole life beings, which is gonna bring further clarity on why we are the children of the light. Alright? And why we not to be attached to the carnal titles that we've been given. Alright? At the end of the day, you a child of the light. You're not an Egyptian. You're not a Hebrew, a Israelite. You're not anything pertaining to your flesh, because we spirit beings. Alright? All those titles pertaining to your flesh is irrelevant when you get down into the truth. Alright? The truth is you a spirit being, which the spirit is a child of the great light. Alright? So we are drops of light from the great light. And that's what we're going to see. Let's see. We're going to go into the keys. If you ain't got your copy of the keys yet, you playing games. But just shoot me a email or a comment, and I'll give you the link to where you can get a copy of the keys for $60. Because if you try to go on Amazon or eBay, they're gonna bust your head for a few $100s. But I got a link that a lot of us done got ours from. Even I got mine from there a couple years ago, to where you can get it for $60. Alright? So we're gonna start with the definition of man. Alright? We need to know who we is. Alright? Outside of the carnal teachings of the world. And the more we learn about ourselves, knowledge of self, the more knowledge of your creator or knowledge of God expounds. Alright? As man expounds, his God expounds. Alright? And that's what's as like when the last lesson, when we seen how when they talk about the God of Israel, that's not the supreme being. Alright? That's just one of the gods. Alright? The supreme is not going to send out his henchmen talking about kill this nation, kill all their animals, and just keep the women to yourselves. Nah. The first law is thou shalt not kill. The supreme is not going to go against his law. What the Bible say? The Father is not a man that he should lie. Nah. The supreme consciousness laid down the law. So for him to send you to go kill this tribe and to kill that tribe in the war against these people, but just keep the women to yourselves, nah. Them the deities and the gods of the land that got you doing them. Alright? In the traditions and teachings of man. Alright? That's not the supreme being that sends you to war against this nation and that nation and to destroy this people and that people. Alright? That's doctrine. Alright? And what we see in the last lesson, Jesus was fighting against the Pharisees because of the doctrine. The doctrine is what kept everybody in spiritual bondage. Alright? And as long as you think your God is sending you to kill somebody, that's why half of these Negroes cannot come out of that black power mind frame, that carnal war against white folks, against the Gentiles, who they turn to be Esau, which we know Esau is not the white man, but whatever float they boat with their teachings. But that's why a lot of them can't come past that right there, because their God is a man. All right, and their God give them carnal commandments to go do carnal warfare. But what did Brother Paul teach us? We wrestle not against flesh and blood. All right, but they want to choose to wrestle against flesh and blood. Let them do their thing. We on to the higher war, which is the war of the spirit. All right, the war in the heavens. That's how we change. All right. We had to keep growing. Self-realization. That's the true way of growing into the light. Man as redeemed, Christed man, male or female, who partakes in the activity of the Holy Spirit Shekinah and sonship, so that she can leave a limited Alpha Omega reality, so that he or she can leave this limited Alpha Omega reality and enter into the partnership of divine sonship and creative activity with the sons of light. A garment of the Father. Man is a garment of the Father, originally created to reign with the Lords of Light. Stop. All right. And remember, all the lessons we didn't show where we drops of the Supreme. So when it say man is a garment of the Father, yeah, you a drop of the Supreme. All right. That's encaged in this aspect of the carnal realm. All right. Man is a garment of the Supreme, originally created to reign with the Lords of Light, beyond the dissolution of material or carnal or temporal things, cause, origin, and reason. The image and similitude fully articulated by the Elohim according to the love and light, according to the love and light capacity of the joyfully conceived Adam Kadmon begotten into form. After the fall, the image creation of the Adam Kadmon was limited and used as a biocomputer for activities in the lower heavens. Let's get the second definition of man. All right, in this lowercase right here. All right, a biological creation. A biological creation. All right, so the first definition was man that was made in the image and likeness. All right, the first creation story in Genesis. All right, Genesis 1:27, I believe. All right, the second one is the other aspect of man. All right, the flesh with the spirit within. All right, the first one is the spirit man. The second one, all right, a biological creation, a biological creation arising out of a frequency modulated code message radiated into the genesis of continual creation. A biotransducer processing the thought forms and light signals for higher intelligence. Man is a biotransducer processing the thought forms and light signals for higher intelligence, limited to the games of the lower divinities. The games of the lower divinities, but given the gift of vehicle participation and freedom of the spirit. All right, let's break that down. All right, limited to the games of the lower divinities. All right, like we didn't establish, this is our time of probation. In your time of probation, you in a game down here. All right. You got righteous entities speaking to you. and you got the wicked entities speaking to you. All right, but until you realize that you are a spirit yourself, locked into the vessel of the flesh, you blind to the games. All right, you don't realize that all of your thoughts are not your own. The same way we communicate person to person, spirits in the spirit realm communicate to us spirit to spirit. All right, and that's why when you hear about them talking about how some people be crazy and hearing all these different thoughts in there, no, that stuff is true. All right, and due to some of these drugs and different things people partake in, them voices are heard more and more clearly. All right, and when you unlock the portals for the wicked spirits to come through, all right, they can wreak havoc on you and how you doing some things that's really out your character. Just like a person when they get drunk. Once you get, that's what the Bible say, drink not to get drunk. It's okay to drink, but don't get drunk. Because when you get drunk, the portal is open. And now a spirit can come in and how you doing some mess that just is out your character. All right? Spiritual warfare, spiritual things. All right? A biotransducer processing the thought forms, and light signals for higher intelligences limited to the games of the lower divinities. Alright, and that's the carnal man. But given the gift of vehicle participation and freedom of the spirit. Alright, this is the spiritual man. Alright, through sonship and daughtership in God. An image of pre-programmed DNA, your flesh, is an image of pre-programmed DNA that can be articulated into being through certain sounds and light frequencies. All right, sound and light frequencies can change your flesh. All right. That's why we hear that sound has a healing ability. There are lights that these Gentiles got that they charge $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 for, because them lights got the ability to heal your flesh and your inward parts. All right. Let's keep going. Now, let's go to the whole light beings. Let's get the definition of whole light beings. Those entities of light that exist in pure bodies of energy and travel through the universes by quantum mechanistic corpuscles of light. Quanta is the lower, it's a certain form. All right. Let me get the definition of quanta right quick. Because you're going to see that word throughout this lesson. So let me just get the LMNOP. Let's see that definition of quanta. Quanta, the irreducible, meaning the smallest, the irreducible minimum components of electromagnetic radiation. The smallest, the minimum component of electromagnetic radiation or light of any wavelength or frequency, ranging from gamma rays, X-rays, ultraviolet light, and visible light, through infrared radiation and radio waves. The irreducible minimum components from spectrums that are non-electromagnetic. All right, quanta is the smallest form. All right, so back to whole light beings. Those entities of light that exist in pure bodies of energy and travel through the universes by corpuscles of light and move in the midst of man. by gravitational flux line controls. The entities move in the midst of man. All right. Let's look at the definition of gravitational flux line control. The deliberate control of energy. The deliberate control of energy that can be released by gravitational collapse or partial collapse of a system by the brotherhoods of light and whole light beings. Specific signal frames controlling gravitational flux, isolated flux, internal gravitational flux, inertia, no inertia fields, etc. So that operations of higher intelligence can freely move across the energy frames of space, maintaining the growth of spiritual intelligence. And all that's saying is what you see on the movies when you see them UFOs coming into the atmosphere, or like you see on Star Trek and Star Wars. All right, how you see certain energy fields popping up before them ships can go into them different areas. All right. Now, let's get into the lesson. All right, we just had to get some definitions to get some better understanding right quick. And if you don't know some of them words, just hit pause and go to the dictionary on the internet and just look it up, all right, for better clarification. The people who don't look up words that they don't know, your understanding is not going to be the same. All right, that was one thing that I found out when I first started really getting into the scriptures. And when I seen the Malcolm X movie, when Brother Baines made him bust out the dictionary. Like, hold on, brother, you don't know what this word mean? Nah, you got to look it up. And my teacher, he used to be big on that too. Brother, if you don't know the word, then that changed the whole context of the sentence or what you read. Nah, you got to look up the word. He saying, y'all ain't got no excuse now because we used to have to go get the whole dictionary. All y'all got to do is get on Google. All right, so really ain't no excuse to not at least let your spirit translate what the word means, even if the definition don't necessarily make sense. And when you read the keys, it's going to be a whole lot of science in here that just sound like a foreign language. But the more you stay in it, the spirit start to break it down for you, all right? And you start to find other words that's similar that make more sense than them high dollar words. Page 494, key 315, starting at verse 10. Now at this time, new light particles are being sent into our immediate universe to work with particles already oriented towards the centropic light spiral. All right. New light particles. We hear about the radiation. All right. The magnetic sphere opening up. All right. New light particles. Radiation is light particles. All right. Being sent into our immediate universe to work with particles already oriented towards the centropic light spiral. All right. And it's speaking on the particles within us. All right. The ones of us that's already getting in alignment with this higher consciousness. This wave that's coming right now. All right. Because you know, when it speaks on the return of Christ, it's speaking on the return of the Christ consciousness. All right. But when it's speaking on the return of Jesus, this is the return of the whole light beings. All right. The ETs, as they call them. All right. When he said he coming back with 144,000. Nah, that's the chariots. All right. It's not just speaking on Jesus, the one person like the churches and camps teach us. Nah, it's speaking on all of the chariots that's carrying our brothers and sisters, the light beings, all right, that's coming back for us like it's showing plenty of movies, all right? That's real. Verse 11, this is because the higher energy cannot be sent to those people unless they have the higher integrity of using it correctly. However, the same energy code is given again and again until there are enough cell units to fill the space. For man was never created in a static image. Man was never created in a static image. The process of man is not through. It is a continual growing into the image of light. It is a continual growing into the image of light. It's another definition we need to get here. The definition of light/life. The definition of light/life. The encoding of knowledge. The encoding of knowledge for metamorphosis and unfoldment from the eternal light into a light envelope of form. The extension of the eternal light, the great light, into the multiplicity of the divine self, experiencing even physical forms. All right? So this is the process of light, which is life, which love is the law. The 3 L's right there. Love, light, and life. All right? So right here, light to life is the encoding of knowledge for metamorphosis. All right? We supposed to change like the butterfly. We like the lowly worm in the flesh that's supposed to go into the cocoon, all right, and come out as this being full of light, wisdom, knowledge, understanding, all right? We're supposed to come out like our brother, Yahshua, Jesus, all right? The encoding of knowledge for metamorphosis and unfoldment from the eternal light, the great spirit, into a light envelope, all right? That's us, the flesh, the drops of the eternal light into a light envelope of form, all right? The extension, we are extensions of the great spirit, or the great light, the father of lights, like the scripture calls him, all right? We are an extension of the eternal light into the multiplicity of the divine self, experiencing even physical forms. All right? So we drops of the great light. All right? That's what your spirit man, that star seed is a drop of the eternal light. All right? For man was never created in a static image. The process of man is not through. It is a continual growing into the image of light. 13. Hence, man can grow into a greater ingathering of light. The more light he ingathers, the greater his evolution can expand. The more light you bring in, the greater your evolution can expand, so that he will not be separated from the luminaries of righteousness and love, but will be strengthened by the luminaries of righteousness in the name of righteousness. All right, and that's speaking on the brotherhood, who, as you grow, the entities in the spiritual realm will start to help open you up even more. All right, so you learn in the flesh, but your spirit man also is getting taught by other spirits as you open up and become more receptive to the spirit. All right, let's go to page 355. Page 355, starting halfway through verse 20. The whole light beings come to help the species if it chooses to take the higher spiral of light. The whole light beings, the ETs, come to help the species of man if it chooses to take the higher spiral of light instead of the lower spiral of planetary decay and degeneration. When you understand that the universal intelligence operates through the activation of thought forms, you will understand that we are the materialization of projected universal thought forms. The light beings decide whether the resulting thought forms can sufficiently use data and knowledge as consciousness fields to work with the universal consciousness, to work with the supreme consciousness, or whether the energy fields require the intervention of material technologies generated by the Brotherhood of Light. And remember on the movie The Eternals, the brother that was giving them different technology. All right, that was an example of how the Elohim behind creation will hit somebody with some ideas to bring to man, like with Nikola Tesla. All right, I done read what he said. He was contacted by different beings that gave him some of them ideas he had for them creations. All right, and that's one way that they give technology to us over here, just like they showed on the movie. Generally, the whole light beings indirectly feed the information to rescue the species in question, so as not to violate surrounding zones of consciousness development. Yet at times, there arise instances where mutual programming is necessary. Verse 31. Thus, the light beings, the ETs, come not only to raise the consciousness of individuals, but in some instances, the levels of collective humanity. The entire collective consciousness is brought into new quantum numerical ranges by a new cosmological constant. Through these wave configurations, collective humanity can be received and delivered by the brothers into the higher universes through the constants of curvature which are open. All right, as they open us up, the world opens up. All right, because the world is built off of consciousness. All right, and that's what a lot of us fail to see, and that's why we fighting this carnal war when really the war is spiritual. All right, it's a war for your consciousness. That's why they spend so much money on programming. All right, and that's why we go astray when we get stuck on them carnal teachings, and when we got a carnal God, and when we got a carnal devil. All right, if your God is sending you to war against the Gentiles, nah, that's not the Supreme. The Supreme wants you to raise your consciousness, because as your consciousness rise, you're going to defeat your enemies. All right, because your enemies are going to stay at a lower state of consciousness than you. As your consciousness rise above them, they don't have no power over you. Their power come in deceptions. All right, manipulation, which that's why they work so hard to lower our consciousness. This is spiritual warfare. And this is why when I heard brothers talking about, oh, you need to prepare for the war, go get all the guns you can for the war. No, nigga, the war is up here. And that's what we don't realize because of all this false doctrine and false teaching. And because us lacking knowledge of self. Knowledge of self. You're not your flesh. You're a spirit. Meaning your war is against these spirits. Alright? That's where the war at. And that's why they fight so hard to keep the majority of us dumbed down. Because as more of us start to elevate consciously, the game starts to fade away. And the effects don't work no more. All right? They can't keep us sick no more by lying to us about the laws of health. Nah, because your spirit man gonna adjust you to it now. That's how Babylon gonna fall, because of the consciousness is gonna raise up. And then you got the entities who behind the scenes running mind games on the fallen ones, all right? And all of the carnal-minded people controlling the world, they don't realize that they setting their own destruction up. Nah, because it's something higher than them feeding them right now, to where their foolish pride got them think that they doing something to extend their time period, not realizing, like, nah, even the wicked entities is smarter than the most smartest person stuck in their pride and their ego. Bill Gates had no understanding on the entities that's feeding him. All right. We done talked about that in plenty of other lessons. We ain't gonna go into all that. But this is a war for consciousness. All right. The consciousness is what's gonna help you get to the point to where you got the abilities that your brother Jesus told you that you should have. That's why he was the example. He said, get Caesar what belonged to Caesar, but other than that, he didn't have no problems with Caesar. He wasn't thinking about Caesar. Caesar thinking about Caesar and the Romans was a waste of his time. He knew he had all power over them. It was them niggas that caused him a problem. All right? That's what his problem was at. All right? His problem wasn't with the Romans. Nah. I came into my own and my own received me not. No. Forget the Romans. They only got power is because we don't know who he is. All right? We locked into carnality. Until you come out of carnality, you're not going to beat them in a carnal war. It's no way possible. The Most High done set that up perfectly to where any Negro that think they going to go to war with the Gentiles physically is retarded. You going to lose. There's no way possible for you to win that war. Alright, but when you come back to the land of your inheritance, which is the realm of your inheritance, alright, where your brothers and sisters are waiting on you, then you can have all of the powers like your brother, Yahshua, Yeshaya, Yahawashi, Jesus. All of the powers in heaven and on earth. And the angels will be working on your side. Alright, so then, if the Gentiles try to come for you, nah, you're not alone then. But when you fighting this carnal war out here, nah, they can't interfere in that. Verse 47. Unless we understand this consciousness creation, in terms of other consciousness time zones, we remain in the weeping and gnashing of teeth, in space isolation, without the understanding that we are not alone. We are not alone. The rest of Jaja army is waiting on us to return. And by our powers combined, we gonna take down this kingdom of darkness. But those who want to remain fighting against flesh and blood, nah, the entity is gonna take you down just like they gonna take down the Gentiles in the 2/3. Alright? Because you out of alignment. Prepare your consciousness. Prepare your consciousness to recognize the appearance of the whole life beings through the gifts of the Holy Spirit. For they represent your counterparts. For they represent your counterparts in the greater creation. Whole life beings appear to give testimony to the ongoing creative power of the people of God, and specific changes that occur within evolutionary subsets of the Father's kingdom. Page 361. Starting at verse 3. The energy codes held within the hands of the emissaries who interpenetrate the universes are the keys of love-powered radiations, which sustain the Father's thought forms as they intercommunicate between his living universes. Alright? These emissaries are the brothers and sisters of light. Alright? The whole light beings. Again, the energy codes, the light codes, held within the hands of the emissaries who interpenetrate the universes are the keys of love-powered radiations which sustain the Father's thought forms as they intercommunicate between his living universes. From the councils of light, the whole light beings as emissaries carry the codes of limitless intercommunication between the living star universes as a field of intelligence, serving the life forms of the divine face. Serving the life forms of the divine face, the higher self, the higher intelligence, wherever they may be found. Alright? The carnal Israelites are no different than the 2/3 and the Gentiles who are blinded according to the word. Alright? Those who remain locked in the flesh cannot please God. We done showed that verse many a times. Alright? It's the spiritual ones that recognize they children of the light. Everyone else is stuck in the Babylon mindset and warned against flesh and blood. Alright? They don't recognize the principalities and spiritual wickedness. They may recognize the spiritual wickedness, but due to the fact that they identify with their carnal selves, they don't realize the fullness of the effects and how they playing a part within it. Alright? That's how they become the tool of a devil. Alright? If you out here fighting a race war and you stuck on the white man, the devil and all that, then the devil has effectively recruited you to be one of his tools. Alright? Because now you're not operating off the principle of love no more. Alright? And what did we just read? The keys of love power radiations, which sustains the Father's thought forms, which his thought forms are the brotherhood of light, the children of light. Alright? Those are his thought forms. Alright? It's not this flesh that we get stuck on. Nah, you supposed to rise above that flesh. And only through love can you do it. Alright? But when you stuck on the carnal things of the world and flesh and blood, nah, you done become a pawn for Satan and his entities. Because now, some of your brothers and sisters that might actually have pure love in their heart, if they get stuck in the doctrine that you pushing, it's gonna tamper with their heart to where it's not gonna be as pure no more. Because now they putting all of these people in one category. Instead of reading the spirit, they reading the flesh. And that's what those teachings do to us. Alright? You no longer read the spirit, by the spirit. You just reading the flesh. And that's where you go wrong. And that's when the fallen ones have effectively recruited you to be their pawn. That's the danger in the teaching of Esau, 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 the white man, the white man, the white man. No. Alright? In the book of Revelation, what did it say? He's seen a multitude from many nations that washed their garment clean and made it pure. Alright? They recognized the truth of the spirit. Alright? And they got away from the contamination of the flesh and the doctrines of men. Let's keep going. Verse 6. The emissaries, the entities, the brotherhood, give the codes to the meek and righteous of the earth, who will plant their codes by compassion and love-powered radiations. It is through the love-powered radiations that the seed can manifest, not only here, but in the other worlds and cycles of the eternal inheritance. The emissaries, the entities, give the light codes to the humble and the meek of the earth, who will plant their codes by compassion and love-powered radiations. It is through the love-powered radiations that the seed can manifest. The star seed, the spirit man, can blossom, not only here, but in the other worlds and cycles of the eternal inheritance. Alright? Now let's keep going. The divine seed, even expressed as man, has been created to exist as a dynamic life force, to experience the many levels of universal Godhood within the Father's plan. Hence, it is through the multiplicity of the divine seed within the Father's plan that creation can evolve to experience levels of Elohistic divinity and co-reign with the Lords of Light. If you're not operating off of that love power radiation, you're not gonna get the co-reign. Alright? Because you stuck on doctrine. Verse 8, in essence, this divine seed is the thought form pattern used by spiritual intelligence to evolve a given soul progression of consciousness out of the infinite possibilities available. In essence, this divine seed is the thought form pattern used by spiritual intelligences to evolve a given soul progression of consciousness, an individual soul progression of consciousness out of the infinite possibilities available. And thus, the emissaries, the whole light beings, the ETs, the brotherhood, have been called to this holy calling to evolve the souls, the soul embodiments, to greater levels of experience. They have been called on account of their faith, active in love, while others could not discharge the divine seed from the limitations of the body. While others could not discharge the divine seed from the limitations of the body and mind until it had finished its complete cycle of planetary experience. Hence, the messenger whole light beings who cultivate the divine seed and aid in the completion of its program of soul growth are emissaries, because they understand the mystery of undoing all the seals which were used to bind the souls between each expansion of the universe. Alright? Only the higher intelligence can unbind your soul from what the fallen ones then placed upon you. That's why I was saying in the last lesson, all right, until you come out of the doctrines have your soul bound and tied. But the entities will pull you out of the doctrine to open your eyes up to where you can see more truth. But only the humble and meek can they help. The arrogant and the prideful who just stick with their doctrine because those are the traditions of men and the precepts of men that their flesh love. Nah. they can't unbind themselves in their mind's eye. So they stay stuck. Verse 11. They who were not captured, the remnant, they who were not captured within limited envelopes of light were thus prepared from the foundation of the world to assist with soul evolution. Those are also the remnant seed. All right. The remnant seed is called to assist in the resurrection of the kingdom of light. 13. The Adamic race within this galactic system originally had limitless communication, limitless intercommunication with the entities until the time of the fall. From then on, the planetary families of the Adamic race within our Father Universe were cut off from limitless communication and were placed on an omega cycle of consciousness death, which is carnality. Let's go over to verse 25. Therefore, the individual soul can override negative programming through help from the office of the Christ, which is in coordination with other whole light beings. All right. And when he's speaking on office of the Christ, he's speaking on the ascended masters and those sent with the higher consciousness, the Christ consciousness. Hold on. Forget the definition. I don't want nobody to think you got to come out of religion. I'm not just talking about your brother Jesus. Office of the Christ. The redemptive office of divine light. The redemptive office of divine light. Encompassing the work of the 144,000 ascended masters working with Yahweh or Yahweh and the archangels through the Christ consciousness for the purification of this fallen universe. This includes all of the ascended masters who work for the liberation of humanity throughout the world in all eons of time. All right. So again, therefore, individual souls can override negative programming through help from the office of the divine light, which is in coordination with other whole light beings. In special circumstances, divine intervention allows masters of light to directly interconnect with the individual soul program and speed up the spiritual education and speed up the spiritual education of a soul that is needed in other programs of light. Unfortunately, the negative drag on this end of our local universe is so overwhelming that in spite of all the thousands of Buddhas and Christed masters piercing the planetary veil of soul evolution, it is still necessary for the hierarchy to return and collectively externalize in order to take the righteous remnant with their soul vehicles off the planet through resurrection. They do this in order to prevent the soul from going back into reincarnation or imperfect spectrums of Omega. This is why Soul Man, as Christ Man, must go beyond Alpha and Omega, and why the planet is being resurrected at this time. And in order to help man cross his Alpha Omega threshold, the entities, the whole life beings, carry the equations, the knowledge for limitless intercommunication or communication. is intercommunication because it's a flesh and blood being to a spiritual being. But it's just communication when it's spirit to spirit contact. All right? And that's what we are to try to get to. Oh, it's getting good. 35. Man, when he is evolved into the Adam Kadmon, his original light being body, can go on to inherit any of the worlds of light, serving the Father, the Supreme. He is an intelligence destined to be more than flesh and blood. He is an intelligence destined to be more than flesh and blood. However, to go on to inherit the whole light bodies, man must first be able to use this garment of light to serve his fellow man before he can go on to the many different planes within the Supreme's hierarchy. In essence, the Supreme's hierarchy works through key emissaries of light who have proven they can carry on the responsibilities of the kingdom of light. In essence, the Father's hierarchy, the Supreme Being's hierarchy, works through key emissaries, key children of light, in the flesh and not in the flesh, who have proven they can carry on the responsibilities of the kingdom of light. Among the numerous orders of whole light beings are found those who work on the right-hand side of the Father's office of administration in each Sun universe. Alright, page 379. Page 379. Key 304, starting at verse 1. This key speaks of how the Earth's species has a direct light arc, a direct light focus, which controls its biological rhythms. All right? The crystal seed, the mind's eye. This key speaks of how the Earth species has a direct light arc, a direct light focus, which controls its biological rhythms. Man will soon learn that his life system is not directly dependent upon the solar magnetic field paradigm to regenerate his biological rhythms. A new source of light is now reaching our solar system and interpenetrating Earth's magnetic field, altering the biological rhythms. This is forcing the species to leave behind its old-time cell of perception on the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual levels. This must take place before the species, the remnant, those who are chosen to go farther, can go into a new time cell of consciousness with a unified perception. As the arcs of light begin to change, a different light force is beginning to work with the electromagnetic forces. This is causing the magnetic fields of the brain cavity to be sufficiently raised to a higher mental frequency, allowing man to receive whole light beings who will give instructions as to the program of the next level of creation. The entities are going to begin to instruct us on the next phase of creation. All right? Why the 2/3 and everybody that's stuck with the Babylon image of the beast mindset are not going to be prepared to be able to receive their instructions through the Spirit. All right? And that's where the disconnect is going to start to come in even more. All right? And that's why the entities have certain ones of us out here now teaching the higher teachings to get us prepared to go to the next level. All right? And this is why the time of religion, which camps is a part of religion, Hebrew entity is a part of religion, all that doctrine got to go. Doctrine is binding your spirit to the earth. The will of the Supreme is for you to elevate above all that and to realize that that's just doctrine. All right? The same thing your brother Jesus came to teach. All right? That's what he fought and got frustrated for. All right? What he said? When he said he came, he found man just drunk. All right? Drunk with doctrine. All right? But when they kick out of that slumber, then they'll be able to realize what he was truly sent to do. All right? Let me put up that verse. That's in the Nag Hammadi, the Gospel of Thomas. All right? We coming out that slumber right now. That's what the true awakening about. It's not with the woke folks and the Gentiles and the celebrities and all that teaching, oh, I know this and I know that. Nah, it's spiritual consciousness. That's what being woke is, spiritual consciousness. So if somebody do not have any spiritual understanding, they not woke. They still sleep. Alright? Let's keep eating. Page 513. Starting at verse 42. In the education of the soul, true soul advancement takes place through the channeling of divine thought forms, which move the soul of an individual beyond the consciousness of being limited and earthbound. Again, in the education of a soul, true soul advancement, true soul progression takes place through the channeling of divine thought forms, which move the soul of an individual beyond the consciousness of being limited and earthbound. There are 36 administrative directors on our planet at all times. They are the Hakamim, the wise men who can enter into the Father's presence at any time. Let's get the definition of the Hakamim. Hakamim, the watchmen of Yahweh's programs, of which there are 36 who oversee the destiny of the earth. They serve Yahweh humbly upon the planets like Earth, and yet have the ability to ascend to higher worlds for wisdom, to connect the family of humanity with the celestial family of God. All right? That's our goal, not to stay earthbound, but to work with those in the spirit realm, so that we can get elevated from within the inner temple. All right? Let's keep going. 44. They in turn coordinate the brotherhood of man on our planet. The brotherhood of man is made up of selfless servants who are attentive to the needs of humanity by placing their own individual needs behind those of humanity. Thus, the work of the brotherhood of man, the remnant seed, is to bring the message of peace and preparation. Is to bring the message of peace and preparation for the advancement of the souls of all mankind. The key words of peace and preparation are the instruments by which your soul is prepared to operate on multidimensional levels with whole life beings who transmit peace as the peace that passes all human understanding. That is, the inner knowledge and joy of your co-participation with the many worlds of God's creation. In experiencing these multi-world realities, some will see and some will not see, depending upon whether their consciousness is sensitized and prepared to work with the non-physical reality of a whole life being. 50. However, the members of the Brotherhood of Man in communion with the living light can both see and receive the whole life beings of the Father. For seeing the whole life beings is not the same as receiving whole life beings. To see whole life beings is the ability to see how spiritual intelligence can interpenetrate our reality, which conveys the promise of new life. However, to receive whole life beings is to invite them into your family and to exchange the joys of serving in the Most High's kingdom. And those who are part of the larger family of God will receive and work with the angelic brothers and masters of light during this space-time overlap, when we will connect with the return of the programmers of consciousness, when we will connect with the return of the programmers of consciousness. All right, the movie Independence Day is gonna be live and direct sooner than later. All right, the entities, the whole life beings, are gonna reveal themselves to the whole world sooner than later. And right now, they preparing the remnant seed for their return. Well, it's just gonna be a surprise to the 2/3, the carnal Israelites, and all of the ignorant Gentiles that have not seeked out this truth. Alright? Verse 61. The brothers of celestial light, manifested as whole life beings, come in the appearance of man. With quantum mechanical corpuscles of light, full of the great rapture of the spirit. This appearance force of whole life beings, composed of corpuscles of light, is the projection of the divine image. The whole life beings are the projection of the divine image, which is the Adam Kadmon. This is associated with the corresponding energy change in the individual who momentarily beholds the eternity domain of higher spiritual intelligence. The appearance force which is seen is not supernatural, for the whole life being is an example of superior biological electrodynamics on the human plane. The further one proceeds up the scale of evolution, the more it becomes manifest that higher evolutionary bioelectrodynamics does not conform to inorganic thermodynamics, but has its own scale within living thermodynamics. As the whole life being comes into the physical dimension, he uses gravitational flux line controls. Remember, we read about the energy fields that they control to make the entry of high frequency energy into our realm of biological, physical, temporal reality. His work is not subject to the physical limitations of matter, but is working with instantaneous transference between parallel worlds, the multiverse, between parallel worlds, different dimensions, between parallel worlds and multiple evolutionary orders. 94. In the likeness and appearance of whole life beings, man will understand how his body of physical form is a host. His body of physical form is a host to other bodies of light. These other bodies within you can manage and reorganize the grids of the consciousness psyche and the emotional volitional network, depending on the image making process of love and light. It is with this understanding that the brotherhoods of light come to provide man with the ability to make consciousness transitions between the inorganic thermodynamic systems and biological states that are fixed and controlled by other thinking entities, simultaneously working in grid areas of biological specialization. Moreover, the brotherhoods, coupled with the energy vehicles of man, so the energy vehicles, speaking on the energy bodies of man, moreover, the brotherhoods work with or bind with, couple with the energy bodies of man, so that conventional consciousness, so that fallen consciousness, worldly consciousness is overcome by quanta corpuscles of light in the selective process of life, where one desires to see, and participate actively with the light. You have to desire it yourself. 103. Man will discover that consciousness energy can be transformed into energy forms unknown today in this energy dimension. This key tells us that spiritual consciousness energy can be transformed into other forms of energy. Pause. Remember the lessons that we did on the power of your thoughts. All right? That's what it's speaking on. Your thoughts. That's how we used to create. If you study about Lemuria, Atlantis, and them ancient times, we used to create through the powers of the mind. You didn't have to go out and till no field. You could do anything you needed to do with your elevated consciousness. All right? This key tells us that spiritual consciousness energy can be transformed into other forms of energy. But in order to use this energy for advancement of the human race, you must unfold the light within you. You must unfold the light within you, which can mirror the work of the brothers of light. Some will see and some will not see the entities, depending on whether their brain is sensitive and their consciousness is prepared to accept the non-physical reality of a whole life being, which may at first produce the surprising features of emotional and biological shock. By definition, the whole life being retains a constant garment of light power that does not have to be changed and moving instantaneously from levels of creation to levels of creation. However, the institutionalizing before man in the physical dimension, his garment of light power must maintain a conservative balance of his energy flow, lest the particles overpower the human form. For you will experience in the presence of a whole life being a tremendous burst of light accompanied by a great rush of heat throughout your body, becoming engulfed by the energy presence of the whole life being. This great energy does not dissipate, and were it not for the thermodynamic controls that are placed around you, your body would certainly burst with light. And now, prepare yourself, for with the return of the entities, for with the return of the brothers of light, you will have a fuller experience with the lords of light, and they will shine, and there will be no comparison of the light which you will see around their bodies. On nothing compared to that light from your brothers and sisters on that other side when they make themselves visible to you. Alright? Alright. Hopefully, more doctrine is to been destroyed, thereby freeing your spirit, so that when the entities return, you be ready. Alright? That's our goal. Not to fight against flesh and blood. Nah, let the carnal brothers and sisters do that. We behind the scenes powering up. Alright? We affect the war from heaven. Alright? As we elevate through the layers of heaven, we fight the good fight. Because they don't recognize how the collective consciousness is evolving creation, and how the brotherhood, the entities, is behind the scenes pulling strings, slowly destroying the Babylon image, mindset, and system that's keeping the children trapped. Alright? Listen to that Bob Marley song, Babylon System. Tell the children the truth. They don't play none of that on the radio. But alright, peace.